Hi, mystery writers. Welcome to Write a Killer Mystery, where we learn to make a good mystery great. And today I'm talking about reading for the music of words. So I'm not talking so much about writing, but about how reading helps your writing and inspires you. First, I want to thank my patrons on Patreon for their continued support of this video series and of my writing. And if you'd like to join, there's a link in the description below, and I have special videos and communications for my patrons, so love to see you there. All right, so get inspired by other writers. Small pieces add up to power. And that's kind of how it works. Years ago, I was listening to a classical music station, and a young music intellectual introduced a piece by Beethoven saying, Beethoven is about power. And I thought about that and thought, you need to listen more. Because for me, Beethoven is about beauty. It's about the beauty of the notes. And at that time, I'd recently listened to Alfred Brindle and Simon Rattle and the Weimar Symphony record all of Beethoven's piano concertos. And it was just beautiful. And it's beautiful because Brindle plays each note. He doesn't skip notes. He doesn't boom them, slur them into the next note. Each note is distinct. And that comes from paying attention. So the whole idea of this is that's what we need to do as writers. We want the words, each word, to build up that, quote, power, unquote, of our writing. Listen, I'm nowhere near that yet with my writing, but I definitely want to be inspired by other writers who do it well. So I encourage you to do that. So first of all, I've talked about this before. Writers read. We need to read. But today I want to focus on learning the power of words by reading masterful writers. You want your reading to be as wide as possible as a writer. And for many who are independent publishers, you want to read your current competition, and this is cool. You want to pay attention to what's going on in your genre. Ours is mystery, right? And I wanted to share with you today some examples from my personal experience of writers who've inspired me. But I just want you to know it's not that I'm suggesting that you read these particular authors. It's that you need to find the inspirational masters to serve as a touchstone for your writing. I hope that makes sense. It's that you need your own personal writing master mentors, as it were. So first of all, when I read A Gentleman in Moscow by Emma Toll, I would find myself 2 o'clock in the morning reading. This is not an action adventure novel. And I was like, I couldn't put it down. And it's, I have to go to sleep so I can get up in the morning and do my work. And I found it so hard to stop reading. But it was because of the language. Each sentence leads to the next, and I just couldn't stop reading. So I wanted to read you just the beginning of how he writes. All right. At 6:30 on the 21st of June, 1922, when Count Alexander Ilyich Rostov was escorted through the gates of the Kremlin onto Red Square, it was glorious and cool. Drawing his shoulders back without breaking stride, the Count inhaled air like one fresh from a swim. The sky was very blue. The sky was the very blue that the cupolas of St. Basil's had been painted for. Their pinks, greens, and golds shimmered as if it were the sole purpose of a religion to cheer its divinity. Even the Bolshevik girls conversing before the windows of the State Department store seemed dressed to celebrate the last days of spring. I'm just giving you these examples, all right? So right now I'm on my third read-through of the Red Riding Quartet by David Peace, because the language carries the story word by word. And so I wanted to read you an example from 1974 of the Red Riding Quartet. All we ever get is Lord fucking Lucan and wingless bloody crows, smiled Gilman, like this was the best day of our lives. Friday, 13 December 1974. Waiting for my first front page, the byline boy at last. Edward Dunford, North of England crime correspondent. 2 days too fucking late. I looked at my father's watch. 9 a.m. and no bugger had been to bed. Straight from the press club, still stinking of ale, into this hell, the conference room, Millgarth Police Station, Leeds. The whole bloody pack sat waiting for the main attraction, pins poised and tapes paused, hot TV lights and cigarette smoke lighting up the windowless room like a town hall boxing ring on a late night fight night, and the paper boys taking it out on the TV, setting the radio state playing deaf. They got sweet F.A. A quid says she's dead if they got George on it. Khalid Aziz at the back. No sign of Jack. I felt a nudge. I'm not going to read from these next authors, but I just wanted to mention them. I've mentioned Adrian McKenty more than once here, and the beginning of The Cold, Cold Ground reads like poetry as he describes the troubles in Belfast. And then another thing about Adrian McKenty, one of my favorite novels is called Falling Glass, and it's all about words. It's just all about words. The main character uses words to do everything. And the first scene sets up the whole story for the end. I just find it brilliant. Falling Glass by Adrian McKenty. Then another passage I wanted to read to you was from The Bridge of Sighs by Olin Steinhauer, and it sets up a mystery that takes 5 books to resolve in the Ruthenia Quintet. The greeting was in his desk, the center drawer, a piece of fish-stained cardboard with a clumsily drawn stick figure. It had a circular head and an X for each eye. A fat knife separated the head from the stick body. The speech balloon said, "We're on to you." His chair wobbled insecurely beneath him. Emile inhaled slowly, evenly. He sat in the center of the large, stale-smelling office between two columns, and on the far wall, two high, open windows did nothing to freshen the air. His tight suit constricted him as he stared above the others' heads at the clock on the yellow wall. It was the dirty, pale yellow of Austro-Hungarian demise. He had been here only 45 minutes. And then there's the wordplay master, Anthony Burgess. Most people think of A Clockwork Orange as the film by Stanley Kubrick with all its violence, but the book explores language and beauty and the connection of our spirit and the evil of state control. There's a lot more in the book than there is in the film, but the main thing is the language that the story is written in is the language of the main character, and it's filled with made-up words. And so one of the things the reader has to do is enter into the language of the protagonist in order to get into the story. What's it going to be then, huh? There was me, that is Alex, and my three dogs, that's Pete, George, and Dim being really dim, and we sat at the Korova milk bar making up our rasodoks, what to do with the evening, a flip dark chill winter bastard, though dry. The Korova milk bar was a milk plus mesto. And you may, oh my brothers, have forgotten what those mestos were like. Things changing up story these days, and everybody very quick to forget. Newspapers not being read much, neither. Well, what they sold there was milk plus something else. They had no license for selling liquor, but there was no law yet against prodding some of the new veshies, which they used to put into the old moloko, so you could peat it with Velosaur or Synthames or Drenacom or one or two other veshies, which would give you a nice horror show 15 minutes admiring Bog and all his holy angels and saints in your left shoe with lights bursting all over your mogs. You could peat milk with knives in it, as we used to say, and this would sharpen you up and make you ready for a bit of dirty 20 tune, and that was what we were peating this evening. I'm starting this story with. That was one paragraph. Okay, that's it for my sharing words from writing masters. But I encourage you to read masters to see what they do with language, what they do with words, how they string them together, because I think it's easy as we're writing to get stuck with our story elements and forget about the actual language we're using as we write. So each of the writers takes the reader into the story, and each does it in a completely different style, and the rhythms of their syntax varies. This, I think, is a great way to examine a writer's voice, because their voices are each so different. So, this is all about encouraging you to read so the music of the words stays in your head. Uh, so I want to thank you for listening today and encourage you to read. And I'd love to hear from you who your favorite writing master mentor is. I'd love to hear who you admire for the way they use words. And thank you so much. And don't forget, if you're writing a mystery and want to learn more about it, Write a Killer Mystery is the course specifically for mystery writers about mystery writing, and I'd love to see you there. We have a private Facebook group where we talk about writing mysteries even more. So check it out, Write a Killer Mystery. There's a link in the description below. Meanwhile, read those masters, and I'll see you next week. Thank you.